We are live. Dermo, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Harrison. Really excited to talk to you today, man. I'm buzzing.
Yeah, mate, most welcome. Awesome to have you here. I think for a bit of background, we'll tell the audience how we met. I think it was through Paul, wasn't it? Just connecting on Instagram. He said on his story, right, anyone heading to Melbourne, connect with this guy, top guy. And yeah, I can definitely agree with him having met you, met up for a coffee. Sounded like we were very aligned in the way we see the world and been through similar stuff. So yeah, we'd love to start by seeing or learning about how you've ended up here in Melbourne, and then yeah, we can go from there.
Love it, man. Paul was a client of mine and someone that when I met, like I really got on with straight away. Like he was very much like yourself, and myself. We'd love to talk about like self-development and being better versions of ourselves. And I think we were just talking just before we jumped on about this desire to always want to improve, which is one thing I really love about you.
Yeah, it's super important. I think we were also discussing the idea of, right, when do people actually start to change? And I think a lot of people can be quite sort of stuck in their ways. They're not quite sure when to take that leap in and start to actually reflect on their life. I wonder then when that journey started for you, did you have a big sort of wake up call? At what point did you think, right, I've got to change my life? Because that's ultimately where I think a lot of personal development comes from. There's something about ourselves that we want to improve, right?
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think I'll start with where I'm from. Obviously, I'm from Dublin, Ireland, in case you haven't noticed from the accent. But I grew up in a place called Tallaght. And in Tallaght, like, there's your surroundings are full of drugs, drink. It's the lads, it's having fun. That's what it's all about, And I went to school in Tallaght Community School. Started to, like, I wasn't really doing well in school. Like, I wasn't a top class student. I was always kind of like a messer. So I suppose my journey started after going too hard on the sessions. Like I was taking them a bit too far. And then from there, I was like Monday feeling really shitty, thinking like, I don't want to live this life forever. I don't want to feel like this and only live for Friday, Saturday and Sunday, which I was kind of, I'd go out on Friday. Sometimes I wouldn't even come home till Sunday. Like it was pretty hectic. And then Monday to Thursday was just pure survival mode. So that was probably the trigger for me to start making some changes. And I always liked exercise. And when I finished up school, I entered into like a college to do like personal training and stuff like that. And doing that gave me a purpose. And then on top of the purpose combined with the hangovers and the surviving was the catalyst for making the change that I did.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I was going to ask because, again, I think it is a phase in a lot of, I say men's lives, but probably the majority of people's lives as well, right? You go out, you party, you have lots of fun, and there is an element of fun there. But I do wonder actually how, because it's normalized, is it actually, should it be normal? And are people just having fun, or is there something underneath? Are they escaping a feeling? And I find that really, really interesting. And I wonder if like the whole of the world really are escaping to a degree. Maybe we're all just running away from something. Did you ever get that? Did you ever feel like you were running away from a feeling, or was it just, were you not really aware at the time? Or now looking back, can you reflect on it and see things differently maybe?
100%, man. I think at the time it was just fun in my head, but maybe there was more to it. Like, as I've went on this self-development journey, I've realized that there was a lot more barriers in place to achieve the things that I wanted to achieve once I started it. So it's like when I was on the sessions, I was having great fun with the lads, I was out all weekend. Like it was fun. It wasn't like this thing where I thought like I was, I don't know, self-sabotaging. I didn't think it was self-sabotage. I thought it was just, having fun. But as I got older, yeah, definitely I started to realize that maybe some of them patterns were in relation to other things.
Yeah. Do you think with these other things, do you think it all ties back to this lack of purpose? You mentioned that you sort of had this idea of, right, okay, I'm actually serving other people or something greater than me. Do you think all the stuff that you were avoiding, was it perhaps reality, the fact that maybe you didn't have a purpose? And because I think that's something a lot of men are looking for. Everyone's looking for their thing. They're looking for their purpose and their passion. But what I've learned through the podcast and speaking with people is that often it comes to you when you're not looking for it. So how did you stumble upon the personal training, and how did you, reflecting back, do you think it was the purpose that you were missing?
Yeah, so when my mates, all right, we finished school, they were all going to college to do business. And I was thinking in my head, like, I don't want to do business. Like, I don't want to sit at a laptop. It's funny because what I do now, but it's like, I just couldn't see it at the time. You know, I was like, yeah, I don't want to sit down and just like do the same as everybody else is doing. I love exercise. I love music. So I want to do something to do with them things. And exercise was the pull. I was like, could I make a living doing music? I didn't know. Like, I didn't have the confidence that I could, but I had the confidence that I could make a living doing fitness. So that was like a big moment for me that, yeah, all my mates went to business college, like they were doing business management, and I went to do a personal training course. But it's funny now because I am the one that runs the business and I'm the one that works on the laptop, but I do something that I love now with purpose. So it's really good, yeah.
Yeah, reframing it. That's really interesting. Because I feel like a lot of people, they have these ideas, but they're just following the crowd. And it actually sounds like you didn't want to follow the crowd. And a lot of people don't actually get that realization. I wonder why it was so obvious to you. Were you just very adamant? Were you maybe brought up in an environment where you're encouraged to do your own thing? Or was there pressure on you to follow everyone else? Where do you think that came from? Do you think that decision to go, I'm just doing this because I want to fucking do it, not because everyone else is?
Yeah, do you know what? I think there was maybe just a bit of a rebel in me. I don't know. I actually don't know. I know when it came to it, like to chasing fitness, like even some people didn't think that it was a good thing to chase. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't reliable because, you know, if you're working your own business, you don't have like a reliable wage and stuff like that. So I think I just rebelled harder against that. And I think this is something that actually sometimes happens, I suppose, with clients, that you have to actually give people their autonomy, or sometimes they rebel back. So maybe it was actually the push to go to college and do the same thing as everybody else that made me go, hey, actually, I make my own decisions. I do what I want to do. That could be potentially why I actually took the route. And it's so funny that you say that because I've never thought about it like that before.
Well, I wonder if we could go even deeper because it's interesting. They say with overly strict parents, usually what happens is the kid ends up rebelling later in life because they were never really given that freedom to do it, and they end up just wanting to try new shit outright. I wonder if that was something in your upbringing. Perhaps you were always sort of pushed. Was it a strict upbringing? Were you like pushed to do certain things, or did you find that you sort of had that freedom to decide for yourself?
I think my mum wanted what was best for me, always. But I think she thought what was best is to go to college, get a degree, you know, the usual route. I think most mothers and fathers would think they would like their son or their daughter to go to college, you know. I think I would have a different perspective now, but even back then, I think it was very common for mums and dads to want their son or their daughter to go to college and get a degree because it was the thing. It was like, oh, my son is studying this or studying that. But I didn't really care much for that. It was like, I want to do something that I love.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Again, everyone wants to just follow what society's doing. They have this idea of what's best, but ultimately, the only person who's going to know what's best for you is you. And I'm really fascinated by this idea of we create this identity of ourselves, but is that really us, or is it based off of societal expectations? And we were talking about this the other day. You might form an identity from when you were younger as a defense mechanism, or people would perceive you a certain way. And breaking out of that can be very, very difficult. And you stay in this identity. And what happens is when people have this big wake-up call, they're like, actually, I thought I was this person, but the reality is I'm someone completely different. And then, they have an ego death and they sort of reinvent themselves, right? I wonder how many people wake up and realize, oh, actually, I'm in this job. Why am I in this job? Okay, because you want money. Okay, but why do you actually? I don't think people really question it. I think they're kind of just following the matrix a bit. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of people do find pleasure and perhaps happiness in this way of living. But I'm really interested in how people can have that maybe consciousness to step away and do the thing that they want to do. You touched upon an interesting word before, which was confidence. You had the confidence to do the personal training. I don't think a lot of people have that naturally. I think for a lot of people to step away and do the thing that they love through conditioning or through childhood experiences, wherever it may be, they don't have that confidence. So I wonder why or how you generated that confidence to believe in yourself. Did you believe in yourself? And if so, where did you generate that yourself?
It's such a hard question to answer. Did I believe in myself? Maybe not, man. I actually, sometimes, probably, like I believed that I didn't want to spend my life doing something that I hated. That's what I believed for sure. And did I have complete utter confidence that I was going to make it as a trainer? No, not really, but I was willing to risk it. I was willing to give it a bash and see could I do it. So I wouldn't say I had like bulletproof confidence that I'm going to be like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make lots of money, I'm going to be able to build a business and do all these things. It wasn't like that. It was more like, if I go into this business management course and I just am like 40, 50 and I'm hating my life, like really angry and frustrated all the time, I was moving away from, I suppose, stress, or moving away from pain. And I think pain can be a good motivator. So maybe that's actually what it was. It was moving away from the pain of doing something that I didn't like my whole life.
I think a lot of our actions are actually generated through our emotions. A lot of our driving forces are coming from emotions, right? For you, it was, fear of that life or what it would look like, and you're using fear as a motivator. I wonder how that translated into your personal training, because I've always heard, right, fear, it's a good starting point, but you can't build a whole career or successful way of living through fear, because ultimately you're always going to be chasing, and you're never going to really embrace the present moment, and you're going to run out of energy and motivation. So how's your experience been? I guess for you were actually doing something not out of fear, but because you were actually enjoying it, right? Is that something that you resonated with when you were doing your sort of personal training? Was the motivation always, right, I'm doing this because it makes me feel good, or did you even look that deeply?
Yeah, so once I started personal training, when I got like one of my first clients, this would have been like 9-10 years ago now, I got them a really good result. And seeing how happy they were gave me like a deep sense of fulfillment that I had not felt. I felt like I've really positively impacted this person. And they almost kind of looked up to me and were like, my God, thank you so much for helping me, And I was only a young guy at the time. I was only like 20, 21. My client was actually a good bit older. I think they were like 30s, maybe like mid-30s. And they had kids and they wanted to chase after the kids on the beach, and they felt really uncomfortable doing that. There was a fear there that they wouldn't be able to run, a fear that they wouldn't be able to play with their kids properly. And yeah, that was really a fulfilling moment. I remember that moment. I still remember that moment today. That's what lit the fire in me to keep going. And then I was like, okay, how can I get better at this? Because at that stage, like 9-10 years ago, I wasn't impacting everyone that came into my world. And I didn't understand how to impact everybody that came into my world. But then the more skills and knowledge that I built over time, it was almost like a game. It's like, how much more people can I help? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, once I got into that mindset, I just kept looking for more reasons to become better.
Yeah, you've touched upon some really interesting things there. The most interesting one for me is this wider mission, this wider purpose. Suddenly it's not about you, it's about other people. And I think this is the key thing in life. I think a lot of people are missing. We're always preoccupied with ourselves. How can I make more money? How can I be more successful? How can I achieve this dream life? Whereas if we make it about other people and you make, like you said, you felt this fulfillment, which can we realistically get on our own, focusing on our own mission? I don't think so. I think we can become very egocentric, and when your intentions are only for you and they're selfish, which I think the majority of the time our natural instinct is to do that, then I think ultimately all the different areas of your life are going to be affected, right? You're going to probably have a lower life satisfaction. I think you're not going to be giving to society, so you're not going to receive. That's my biggest philosophy, I think. It's like, for example, if you want to make money, you have to invest first, right? So you invested in your knowledge, in your personal training, you invested in all of these type of things. And that ultimately enabled you to receive money back. And it's the same with everything. We have to give, I think, to receive all the good stuff. If we're just out there to get, that philosophy doesn't get you anywhere. And I think there's a real science behind it, or there's a real reasoning behind it in terms of having a wider purpose, something a lot bigger than yourself. I wonder then, if you're looking at other people and giving advice to other people based off of your own experience, would it be as simple as, right, go and find a wider mission? And how do people find that? For you, it sounds like kind of you stumbled upon it. So how would other people generate that, do you think?
First of all, I would recommend people to clarify their values. They go through your life and think about the times where you've felt most in alignment or at your best, okay? So if you've ever heard of like the term, like a glimmer moment, do you ever get them moments in time where you're like sitting back and you just feel euphoric and you're like, life is good? Think about that time and think about what's actually in line for me then. Like, what am I living in line with? Like for me, I know that's like when I'm traveling, when I'm developing myself, when I'm looking after myself, like self-respect. When I'm living in line with these things, I feel great. I feel like purposeful and moving towards my aspirational identity, which is like the ideal version of myself.
Yes, that's super important. What's the highest version of yourself and what's that person doing? I think a lot of the time when we struggle, we kind of look into the past and we ruminate on things. But ultimately, it's that vision. Okay, where are we going? Not spending our whole time in the future, obviously, but thinking, right, who's the best version of myself and can I become that person now? I've heard some really cool quotes in terms of like being the best version of yourself. And it's like, one of them I think was quite fun. It was be the person or the man that your mum thinks you are, and which I like a lot. And the other one was be the man that you would want your daughter to date. And I think these are just examples, but really thinking about, okay, being honest with yourself and thinking, right, who am I showing up as in this world? And you also touched upon a point there of, right, pay attention to what feels good. I think we can also pay attention to all different types of emotions. Are we feeling shit? And if so, why? But I think a lot of the time it's very easy for us to just get a quick dopamine fix, for example, whether it's scrolling or whatever. But I think if we just take the time to really feel, okay, how do I feel around this group of people? And I think that's what kickstarted it for me, was I felt invisible around a certain group of people. And I felt like it didn't really matter if I was there or not. And I think for me, that was a big step of, okay, right, actually, what am I doing here? There's surely something greater than this. And like you said, traveling, where you can just be yourself. You've got no one conforming you to an identity, and you can just be whoever the fuck you want to be. And I think that's a big part of the reinvention process. I wonder if you've had any challenges of maybe on your path of self-development, have you ever changed a bit or changed your identity, but then you've come across people in your life from beforehand who knew the older version of Dermo, perhaps, who was out there partying, or it doesn't even have to be that. It could just be your personality and aspects of yourself that you've moved on from. Has that been a challenge for you? Have you ever found that, perhaps it's family or friends where they've had this older perception of you and you've kind of moved on from that?
Yeah, I would say I think most of the people I have in my circle right now are quite supportive. But yeah, would definitely have got that, like, like there's a big drinking culture in Ireland and in the UK as well. It's like when you step away from drinking, people are almost like always question you. It's like you committed a crime. Some guys will think like, what are you doing with your life if you're not drinking? It's like, who are
It's
you?
crazy, right?
It's crazy. Like, they make you feel like there's something wrong with you.
Mm.
Like, you're fucked up because you're not putting alcohol in your body. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to shame anyone for drinking alcohol. I like a drink the odd time. I haven't drank now this year, and I'm hoping to stay off it for a good while. And not hoping. I'm gonna take it definitely a few months.
Mm.
But yeah, like I would never pressure anyone else into like drinking and stuff like that. Like I just don't do it. I respect people that are trying to better themselves. If somebody wants to stay off alcohol, I'm like, yeah, man, kudos to you. I respect that.
Absolutely. And I actually think in the same way, if people want to stay a certain way, they don't want to perhaps grow in terms of the way you perceive growth, then that's also okay. I think that's something I've learned as well and a big part of my journey. But yeah, alcohol is a big one, I think, for sure. And it really does get you thinking. I was actually reading a great book based off of a recommendation. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. And in one of the chapters, he talks about how the reason why a lot of people have trouble with you changing your identity is because you originally bonded with that person over a certain energy. So you were transmitting a certain energy. Maybe it was like sadness or whether it was, and you wouldn't have even known this at the time, but you're both in a similar energy. Whereas what's happening is you're growing, but that person's staying the same. And what's happening is they've still got the same energy, but your energy is different. And so when they see that, they're like, oh, hang on, like, this person's a bit strange lately. What's happened with him? He's a bit off. But what's actually happened is that you're evolving, you're changing your frequency and your energy. Meanwhile, they're staying the same, and there's going to be tension there. And unfortunately, what I think happens is because when you've changed your energy, you might not have found your new circle of friends yet. You might not have found, your new self or this new group of people. So a lot of the time, I think out of fear of what's happening, I think a lot of people might actually go back to that older crowd and go into the same habits, and that's what keeps them stuck. So I think especially at this stage, changing your environment's a huge, huge, huge one. I wonder in your case, what that change of environment looked like for you. Was it as simple as traveling? Did you maybe drop off or distance yourself from friends? How did that look like for you to become the best version of yourself?
Yeah, so I suppose I stayed away from pubs more, 100%. And yeah, if people were drinking more, I would definitely distance myself from them just because it doesn't align with where I want to go, what I want to do with my life. And I suppose it comes back to your values again. Sometimes people value that, they really value fun, and then they link fun to alcohol. And if they want to do that, it's fine. I value fun as well. I like drinking the odd time, but I want to make sure that I get the best out of myself as well and make the best quality of life I can. And something that you said there that I really liked, right? That I was speaking to one of my clients about maybe about 2 months ago. He's going through an identity shift at the moment. And he was talking about how he was getting some stick over like not drinking, like even like I think he was drinking zeros one night, or maybe he was going home early, one of those. And after that, I noticed like he went through a little spell of kind of just like pulling away from the direction he was going. And this is why a coach is really helpful, because I noticed it. And I was like, kind of address this with him, that we can have a fear of success as well. Because, and that's a self-sabotage. We self-sabotage sometimes because we're fearful of success.
Mm.
Because if we turn into this new identity, we might have to leave people behind. And like you said, people will pull us down subconsciously to try to keep us there rather than let us grow to our next level. And that can be actually a really hard one. Most people don't think that, I'm fearful of success, but we can be fearful of success for sure.
Mm. And this is why I think just feeling, as we were touching upon before, really feeling everything. And okay, all this, all these emotions, and all these feelings, they're all surface level things. And if we can just peel back the layers, then yeah, I think we can find out more about ourselves. And again, they don't realize they're doing it. I think it's all subconscious. They think they've got your best interests at heart, but then really, I think they're just projecting their own insecurities, right? It's very easy to look at other people and think, oh, nah, like, you shouldn't be doing that. And yeah, I think you've definitely got to, I think, just let go. And a lot of people are sort of scared of letting go as well. Was that obviously, yeah, it sounds like the pub was all right for you. I think for you to say, right, that doesn't serve me anymore. But how was that letting go process for you? And how did you replace these normal activities with something else?
It's a really good question. Letting go was difficult. Letting go was lonely. I wasn't with my girlfriend at the time. I think when I was about 22, I was trying to get away from the big sessions. So it was definitely lonely, and I went through an actual really hard point in my life. I think it was about 2016, 2017, where I wanted to stop doing drugs and reduce the amount of drinking I was doing. But yeah, I was struggling because I didn't actually have a support group outside of that to go to back then. So I was kind of like just trying to lone wolf it. And that was really difficult. That was so hard. Like I remember back now. And that's one of the reasons why I think you need to put yourself out there and find new people that kind of think like you or want to develop like you, because it can get really, really lonely if you don't. You only have so much given you, because when I started to like weave off it, I would maybe do 4 weeks, like I'd put my head down, I'd be training, I'd be like focusing really on my nutrition. And then I'd go out once and I'd like fall into an all or nothing mindset. I'd probably go out and I'd go crazy, and then I'd spend that week recovering. So it was a slow process to actually get away from it completely, because I kept falling into that all or nothing mindset. Once I started, I was out. I remember I was the one that would always start the latest, because I didn't want to do it. So I was always like, oh no, I'm not doing that. And then I would normally do it the worst time, which is probably like self-sabotaging itself, It's like the worst time would come, and then people would want to be going home, and then I'd be like, oh no, stay out, because I didn't want people to leave on the session and stuff. So it's funny thinking back now, but yeah, crazy times.
Yeah, definitely so. And I think that's a good point you mentioned as well, just because I think it's when we do want to change, naturally we're going to have setbacks, and there's going to be those instances where you do fall back into old patterns. And I think that is okay, as long as we're aware of it and we have the right mentality. Yeah, we can definitely, I think I've definitely experienced this in my life, where we think that we're done with something. And yeah, maybe it's been a couple months even, and then suddenly something will happen, whether it's a trigger, we don't even know, but our subconscious has taken over, and we find ourselves either doing the same old patterns, or we just get back into it. Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I know for a while, I think smoking was a big one for me. I really enjoyed it at the time, and yeah, I think I stopped for a good while. To be fair, I think it was after South America, and then I was working, and I thought, right, I started a new job. Don't want to be a smoker because I'm going to smell, and it's something else that's keeping control of you. So I stopped completely. And then when I left my job, I just fell into it again. And my environment actually wasn't optimal at the time, surrounded by smokers. And yeah, you can fall back into it. And I think just in those moments, I think it's quite easy to think, fuck, how the fuck have I done this again? But then thinking, right, okay, actually, look, I have made some progress since last time. I'm not necessarily back to square one. And for this period, okay, I've gone back to it, but right, how can we learn from this experience for next time? And I really reconnected with that feeling of, oh, how the fuck did I get back into this again? Like, it's such a terrible habit. And now, thankfully, I think I am done with it, I think, certainly. But yeah, we can fall back into those old patterns, and it is important to just have that mindset of, okay, just because it doesn't mean you're back to square one. Like, you've made a lot of progress since then, And if we're just focusing on that, then we're going to neglect all the other areas perhaps we've improved upon as well. And again, it's all part of our own journey. I think that's important to remember. And yeah, I wonder how your mindset was during these setbacks as well. Were you quite sort of tough on yourself, or did you have this feeling of, okay, I will get out of it eventually?
I love that, man. I love how you put that. And for me, I was very self-critical, very, very self-critical. And that's what brought me back into the cycles. So with the all or nothing mindset, normally you're like somebody that struggles with it is very judgmental of themselves. So when I went onto the session and did whatever, 2 days or whatever, I would beat myself up. Why did you do that? Full of shame. And then that would keep me in that all or nothing mindset or that all or nothing cycle. And you kind of referred to like the trans-theoretical model of change. You kind of referred to it there. So which is like pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance. And then there can be relapse or slip up. And we can all slip up, and we probably all will slip up, exactly like you said. And one of the biggest things, or one of the most important things that we can develop, both women and men, but I always say especially men because they don't really take this word, they don't take it in the right way. They think it's soft, but we need to develop compassion, for ourselves when we slip up. So we can actually make the change in the long term and address these patterns.
And I guess it's addressing them more so with curiosity as well. I think if we have that curiosity, then we can think, okay, why has this happened and how can we prevent it next time? But like you said, I do want to talk about this negative self-talk because I see a lot of conflicting advice out there, and I think a lot of people will find it quite confusing because on the one hand, you've got people saying, yeah, negative self-talk is good because you're going to wake the fuck up and you're going to get your shit together. But then I also think there's the other side of that, which is if you're constantly telling yourself this story, you're reinforcing all these limiting beliefs that you formed since childhood.
100%.
And that is why I think, okay, at first, maybe have that realization, think, okay, come on, mate, like you can do better than that. But ultimately, I think all of our negative emotions, they come from our inner child experience and they're learned behaviors, right? So if it was a child making the same mistakes we were, if there was a child making the same mistakes in the sense of, okay, obviously they're not going to be drinking and taking drugs, but yeah, you see my point. You're not going to yell abuse at them. You're not going to have a big go at them, right? But what you can do, you can say, okay, cool, how can we learn from this? Why did you do this? You talk to them. So why don't we have that same conversation with ourselves? And then once we've got that, then all right, we can learn from it. And I guess that's where the compassion comes in, right? Do you think that's like the right balance?
100%, man. I love it. So as far as I know, self-criticism, right, in the research, like high levels of self-criticism, because maybe some criticism is a good thing. If we had none, that might not be the best thing either. So yeah, if we have high levels of self-criticism, as you said, it reinforces all these self-limiting beliefs that we hold. But it's associated with blame and denial as well, where compassion is associated with problem solving and self-reflection and like that curiosity, like you mentioned, which is so important that we can stand back and look at our behavior and go, okay, I did this. How can I adjust it going forward? But when we're too self-critical, we are so in our heads that our problem solving isn't actually that great. It leads to more overwhelm, burnout. Yeah, that'd be a basic.
And I wonder in terms of how people can get out of that overwhelm as well, because ultimately when we're in that state, it can be, well, I mean, it is overwhelming, so I was going to say it's going to be overwhelming, but yeah, it's not fun.
Yeah.
I think, because what I've learned through my own experience is that if you can actually take yourself out of that, you can choose whether to have that. And it's like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. We touches upon this idea of being present, and every time you speak about or think about the future, just bringing your awareness back into the present, because the future doesn't exist. It's not real. It's something that may or may not happen, but it's completely irrelevant to what's happening in the now. And he also says the past is not even a thing either, because all there ever was, there wasn't a past. There was always just a now. And if you can bring your awareness back in the now, I like to think of our mind as basically our ego, right, which is separate from our internal being. And if we can almost take our mind out of it and separate it and just observe what's going on, I think there's the observation, right? Observation of our patterns, which we've discussed. But I also think there's something deeper where we can separate ourselves from our mind and think, okay, once we're in that mind, we've got all these problems, right? So, okay, for you, it might have been, I don't know what's been going on in your mind. So I'll speak from personal experience. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, right, I've got these 3 things on my to-do list. I'm meeting this guy for a coffee at 11:30, and then I'm seeing Dermo for a podcast at 2. I've got to be there at this time, and I've got to meet my girlfriend at this time. And this is all in the mind. But I believe that that is the mind's business, and we can actually shift ourselves out of that state. And without the mind, we're just being. Like if I say to you, a cool exercise that I do with my clients is, okay, just take away all of these problems out. Imagine there's just nothing there. Okay, just take a moment. Okay, what do you actually see? What are you observing now? And a lot of the time they'll be like, well, there's nothing. I'm here. It's like, okay, so you can clearly separate yourself from your mind. So I think just from my experience, it's just having that awareness of going, okay, cool, this is the mind. Let's take myself out of the mind for a second. I don't know if you can sort of relate to that, or you have similar techniques of avoiding overwhelm.
100%, man. I feel like breathwork. Breathwork is a tool that I use that really helps me to get out of my mind and into my body. And I find when I do breathwork, my thoughts slow down. They're not as fast. So that's one of the tools. Obviously, training as well is a great tool for me. Whenever I'm training, I'm pushing hard. I'm not really thinking about what else is going on, especially jiu-jitsu. I think I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 3 years. And when I'm in jiu-jitsu, it's like you're just in the moment. It's like meditation. It's one of the best things that I do, as well as playing guitar. Music is so good for just getting ourselves back into like a regulated state and slowing down and becoming present in the moment rather than life is chaos. Like the more of these, not the more, like I suppose we don't want to overload ourselves with stuff, but I've got a lot of strategies that I use to keep myself like in a regulated state. And still I get dysregulated like we all do.
Of course.
But I think that is one of the things that I do really well is I've got so much different passions and so much different tools. And I'm constantly like expanding my toolbox of things that I can do to try to bring me back to the present moment and bring me back to a place where I can be like calm and connected.
Yeah. And you touched upon a word there of, jiu-jitsu is like a meditation. This is what we've discussed in previous episodes before. It doesn't have to be like you sitting alone in your room and observing. Of course, that's a great tool, but even just being present, whether it's playing paddle or doing jiu-jitsu, I love jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu now, I think without it would be, I imagine I'd probably find something else to do, but wow, I think that teaches you so much about life. And yeah, in terms of, obviously there's the other stuff like patience and delayed gratification and all the skills you learn and patience, but then also you just have to be present. You have to be present because that's how you're going to learn, and you can't be in the middle of a role and thinking about what you're going to have for dinner later. I wonder how jiu-jitsu has sort of transformed your life, because I've certainly found it transformational.
Yeah, 100%. With jiu-jitsu, like you're always improving and you're getting humbled at the same time. You're getting humbled by the people that are better than you, and then you're improving your skills by the people that are only newer than you, and then you're getting really good competitive roles with the people that are at the same level as you. And I'd say it's improved my life massively just because of that feeling of being connected to something. Especially like people that go to jiu-jitsu, most of the time they're actually really good people. Like I've found some of the nicest guys in jiu-jitsu, some of the guys that are real interested in self-development and being better versions of themselves. they want to as well like look after themselves and have that confidence in themselves. They're not like really aggressive people or anything like that. Well, not in my experience anyway, but they're just sure of themselves. It's like if something did happen, I'll be more confident to handle myself. And I think that's what's really cool about jiu-jitsu, yeah.
And it teaches confidence.
Mm.
Confidence. And that's something I don't think you can necessarily fake. And when you're not confident, I think that's when a lot of our darker traits come out because we're hiding insecurities and stuff. And that's just one of the many benefits. And I also love how you've mentioned that it humbles you as well. I literally it was only a couple of weeks ago, got tapped out by someone literally half my size. And I was like, that is so fun. Absolutely love it. But then you could also go over and have a really good roll with a purple belt, for example. Yeah, you can learn so much from it. And I also think it'd be cool to touch upon, the types of people who go there. And yeah, the majority of jiu-jitsu gyms I've been to, if not most of them, there's a certain culture there, and the types of people who go there, they're all so super friendly. Even in Kyneton, Victoria, where I've been training, lovely people. And I've made some big revelations there about myself as well, and I learned so much from my interactions with them. I wonder how people can... I think, is that the message for people then? If they're struggling to connect with their current crowds and they're going into the same habits, is it, find a hobby that you enjoy? Because chances are that there will be like-minded people there and see the correlation. And even if you don't know what you enjoy, try something. Join a club. And I think majority of the time, it depends on what it is, right? But I think thinking, okay, who are the types of people who are gonna go here? And you might not even know, but go and experiment, because you could find, again, traveling's a big one, just finding your people, right?
Definitely. And I suppose for the people that are listening that are thinking about doing that, my first jiu-jitsu class, I don't know what yours was like, but I was quite nervous, and I think that's normal to feel that discomfort, but that discomfort is going to help you to grow. Mm-hmm. It's like when we first started the podcast, there's always a little bit of discomfort. Well, for me anyway, because I'm only relatively new to this. But once I push through that discomfort, you get this satisfaction and this fulfillment at the end. It's like, oh yeah, I already got into that and I felt good doing that. Where just getting by that discomfort and turning. That's the key thing to transform your identity. Like you said, it's like, if you're a person that's on the drink and your mates look at you as a sessioner, that's your identity right now. You are the drinker, you're the drug taker, you're the guy that doesn't look after himself. First step is to overcome that discomfort in jiu-jitsu and get your foot through the door. And you start to build that identity over time. Then the more you do jiu-jitsu, you start to identify as a guy that does jiu-jitsu that maybe looks after himself, respects himself. That's not to say everybody that does jiu-jitsu doesn't go crazy, but you get what I'm saying, my drift there.
100%. I can relate to that a lot, even in my own journey. Once I found jiu-jitsu, because I did Thai boxing before and it was cool, but that was like during university, and again, had a certain identity there. When I started doing jiu-jitsu, that was when I think I stopped drinking alcohol, because I was thinking, why wouldn't I need to feel my best every day. I'm training jiu-jitsu so many times a week. I need to feel my best for work as well. And once you start concentrating, this is a big thing, I think. When we're looking to give up a habit, a lot of the time we focus on that habit, right? Okay, I need to give up smoking. I need to, and whatever it may be, drinking, I need to avoid this stuff. Actually, what I think we should be doing is thinking, right, again, going back to the identity, what identity do we want to create for ourselves? And you go to jiu-jitsu, you start it off, and over time, you want to keep on getting better and better and better. What does that mean? Okay, I want to become better at jiu-jitsu. Well, that means that naturally you're going to give up drinking, you're going to give up smoking. And I think a lot of the time we focus on the things that hold us back when we should be looking forwards and thinking, right, I want to become healthier. And then you just start being this healthy person rather than I need to stop drinking. You see what I mean?
100%. Yeah, and like one thing that I always emphasize with my clients is like approach-oriented goals, exactly like what you're saying, like actually making goals that are related to how you want to become or what you want to do rather than what you want to avoid. So, for example, that might look like somebody might say, oh, I want to avoid this food, that food, and this other food. But that actually puts a bit of a spotlight on it then. I find it's like when it comes to food, like, it's like, okay, I'm going to eliminate all these things. I'm going to make all these rules. I'm going to follow this rather than I'm going to have 24 homemade meals a week. It's a switch in your mindset, but you're focusing on the positives that you can bring into your life rather than putting all this in, like focus on to what do I need to avoid.
Yeah. And it's similar to the analogy of the pink elephant, if you've heard that one, right?
100%, man. I love that. It's why I'm laughing is because I have that in one of my videos on what I call like the inclusion mindset when it comes to nutrition. Like an inclusion mindset is one that focuses on like nutrients, nourishment, and stuff like that, rather than like just focusing on everything that you have to disclude. But yeah, I talk about like the pink elephant. If I'm focusing on a pink elephant, it's straight away it's in my mind.
Well, yeah, because it's like, yeah, if I'm telling you, right, Dermo, don't think of a pink elephant, then the pink elephant's going to be there. Yeah, that's super interesting, and I think we can apply that to all the different areas of life, really. I wonder then, in your current position now, how is life looking for you? Obviously, yeah, you found that fulfillment now. That, would you say, like a purpose in helping others? How's life currently? And yeah, how are the lessons you're learning now compared to back then?
So the position that I'm in now is like I'm like a health and mindset coach. I started off as like a personal trainer, got qualified in nutrition, and then realized that training and nutrition, you can have so much knowledge in these areas, but it does not matter one bit if you don't know how to change people's behavior. So, because I done these courses, I was like, okay, I'll do a strength and conditioning course. I'll do another qualification. And I was looking at my clients going, why are they not doing what I'm telling them to do? And it comes back to that autonomy then again that we spoke about at the start. It's like you need to still give people their autonomy to make the change rather than if you're always too directive of telling them what to do, they rebel. It's like if you're always like, you have to do this, 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 and this, a lot of people will rebel against that. Some people might do it. Now, there is them clients, and I suppose it is different person to person. There is clients where they're like, you say jump and they say how high, but that's not the case with like all the clients. If you want to get the best results across the board, behavior change was really, really important for me to learn. In terms of like my own self-development, like what am I working on now? Was that the question that you asked there?
Yeah, as well. But I love that first bit as well in terms of what you've been working on. But yeah, in terms of your own self-development too, be interested because we have the big moment that changes our life direction, and we've discussed how you've sort of managed to get out of your previous habits. But naturally, problems don't necessarily disappear; they just change. 100%. So I wonder how your relationship with those has changed perhaps as well. Do you find that, because we all go through challenging periods, right? And I think that's important to mention. There's never a point where you're just consistently happy and pleased. There's always going to be something that bothers you. But I do find once you find your passion or purpose at this current point of time, again, it might change in the future, but when you figure that out, perhaps you have maybe a different relationship with life. But I wonder how that's sort of been for you and how your priorities have shifted.
Yeah, I believe that like I have that purpose, I have that passion, I have the things that I need to do. But there's levels, I suppose, with self-development. I've always felt like there's levels. You get through the barrier, and then you're met with another barrier. You're learning more about yourself. It's like, okay, I've got to this point now. Oh, what's this? I didn't know this is here. And then you start to kind of unravel the next thing that like is limited in yourself. I did a workshop up in the Gold Coast. I think we kind of touched on this the last time we talked, but it was called like Bridge and Extreme, and it was all about nervous system regulation. And that was pretty eye-opening. Like that opened my eyes to a lot of patterns that I didn't realize maybe that were there. And it brought I brought a lot of stuff to the surface that I had to address. So it brought more things up again. And yeah, so that was pretty interesting, man.
Is that the strategy then you'd recommend to people if they want to learn more about themselves and identify their behaviours? What would you say in terms of direct steps? Obviously, I think journaling's a good one, and writing down the things that you think or feel, not necessarily diving straight that deep into them, because I appreciate if you don't have that depth of understanding, you might not go that deep, but could one step just being noticing their thoughts and behaviors, or is there other stuff they can do to cultivate that awareness in your experience?
I think journaling, like you mentioned, is a really good one. Seeking out mentors is going to be key, or coaches, because sometimes we don't actually realize our own patterns. People are much better at recognizing our own patterns. So I believe personally that you probably should, if you want to get the best out of yourself, you should have a coach, you should have a mentor, you should have somebody that's able to pick up the patterns and maybe make you more aware of them, so then you can go on and do the work on them. Because I know I've had mentors like the last couple of years, every year, and without them, there's no doubt that I would have figured all this, like the stuff that I figured out by myself. It just wouldn't have been possible. There's a lot to unpack. We're complex people, complex humans. Humans are complex, yeah.
Yeah. How do people find good mentors? If people are listening to this and, I need to get a mentor, because you can get mentors for different areas of your life as well. Love life or business, whatever it may be. How do people find a good mentor? Because I imagine there's some mentors out there who perhaps aren't that great, right?
I suppose the first thing that, like you mentioned there, you have to recognize what is it that you want to improve. Is it like the confidence in your body? Is it to grow the business? Is it to grow the podcast? And then I would recommend to follow people for a while, see what they're saying, see if they're getting results with other people. Do you relate to them? Do you relate to their message as well? Yeah, I think that's the best advice for mentors. I'm trying to think of any more. Yeah, if it aligns with your values, it's so important, okay? Because I've worked with people before that didn't align with my values, and yeah, it turned out not so great for me, So I think understanding your values, going back to that again, is really, really key, because if you don't understand your values, you can be just aiming towards a goal that doesn't really fulfill you. Like, for example, I when I first started in the coaching industry and I was first doing PT, I did like these physique coach mentorships. And I now realized that although I help people to change their bodies, it's not so focused on the physique side of things. I believe the mindset should come first and then the rest follows. But the approaches that I was using back then and they used were very rigid. You kind of had to put your life on hold to achieve the results that you wanted, where that wasn't in line with how I wanted to live. It wasn't in line with how my clients wanted to live. So it's like, it's great to see these transformation photos and say, oh my God, this guy is shredded to bits. But like, how much sacrifice did he have to sacrifice his relationship? Did he have to sacrifice his life? Like, how much did he have to sacrifice? And sometimes sacrifices are worth it. Sometimes they're not, and you regret them,
Yeah, mate, that is a big one. And again, I think we were talking earlier about losing your identity to the crowd and not knowing who you are. I think, figuring out your core values, and that can be a great indicator of where you want to go in all areas of life and how to identify what can help you. Mate, this has been super, super informative. Time has flown by. We do have a new closing tradition on this podcast.
Yeah.
And 3 questions. The first 2 will be a consistent one, and the third one is going to be asked by a member of the Growth Voyage community on our Instagram. First question is, what is your favourite song at the moment?
Favorite song at the moment is, that's a good question. My girlfriend keeps playing, was it Lola Messy? Have you seen that one on TikTok? I'm too messy. And I'm too fucking clean. It's
I
a
don't-
girl song, but I love it.
Really? Is it one of the trending ones? Is it?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
trending
mate,
at the moment.
I'm behind the times. I need
Yeah.
to. Okay. Well,
I have that on repeat, man. Me and my girlfriend are singing in the car all the time. We love it.
that's so funny, mate. Those songs. There's some songs out there which just you just play on repeat, and some of them actually don't get old. You just keep on rinsing them, and you're like, yeah, come on. That's so
100%.
funny. Okay. Second one is one book recommendation for the audience.
Oh, that's a good one. One book recommendation. See, I've read a good few good books lately, but I think the best book that I've ever read and that I like the most and that I could read over and over again is Atomic Habits. Yeah,
Game changer, right?
game changer.
Wicked. Yeah. It's by James Clear, is it?
James Clear, yeah, I love James Clear. His stuff is really insightful, and he just has so much wisdom. I'm on his email list as well, and when I read his emails, I'm like, yeah, this guy knows. He just knows.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And the third one was from Luke Smith popping up on the story, and it was relating to your relationship with time. How do you go from time poor to time rich in your experience? Because I feel like time dominates everything in our life and it takes us away from the present. How's your relationship with time? And yeah, if it's good, then how have you sort of developed that?
I think my relationship with time could be better for sure. It's such a tough question because it's really deep, isn't it? No, I could definitely be better with my time and to answer that question, I think right now I need to stick to constraints in my business so I have better overall quality of life and time. Yeah, because if my business starts to leak into my personal life, that becomes a problem then. So I think managing that time is really, really important. And I suppose to overcome that sometimes as well is to put your prices up if you're in business to give yourself more time. We spoke about Hermosi, didn't we? Talking about that before we started.
Sort of valuing your time as a currency in a way. And yeah, that could be a good one. Thinking, okay, what I'm spending my time on now, is it worth what it is? And I think we can undervalue that and undervalue our time. But I think if we treat our time like a currency and start really thinking, and again, it goes back to your point about the values. Is this aligned with my values? And right, what is this? Is this worth my time? Is it aligned with who I want to be? And then, yeah, we can tie in everything there and in a business sense as well, rather than pricing it based off of what the market is doing or what other people are doing. Thinking, right, what do I truly believe I am worth? And again, I think that comes down to confidence and believing in yourself as well. And I think this episode is going to be super helpful for people who are looking to cultivate that belief. So yeah, Dermo, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Where can people find you if they're looking to maybe have a chat or interested in your coaching services?
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. This was a great conversation and you made it really easy for me. You know, I feel like we just flowed. So thanks, Mo. I really appreciate it. You can catch me at Coach Dermo on Instagram. That's probably the best place to reach me. Yeah.
Wicked. Yeah. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
man.